Funding for This is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. For 19 years, people have gathered in East Nashville to celebrate tomatoes. There are all kinds of vendors, live music, a recipe contest, a parade, and of course, the event that started it all, the Tomato Art Show. Today, we'll talk with one of the founders of the festival and slice into the world of tomatoes with a master gardener, a professor of agriculture, a top chef, and one of this year's recipe contest winners. But first, in less than 2 weeks, Tennessee's statewide abortion ban will take effect, leaving millions without the right to an abortion, with no exceptions for rape, incest, or the risk of suicide. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic Ocean in Ireland, abortion rights have been moved in the opposite direction. The right to an abortion was added to Ireland's constitution in 2018. How are journalists in these two very different countries covering the abortion debate, and what can we learn about how opinions and laws change? WPLN Newsroom Director Emily Siner is headed to Ireland with a Fulbright scholarship to study this. She joins us now. Hey, Emily.
Hey, Khalil.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Wonderful. So, you've covered the abortion debate as a reporter here at WPLN, right?
Yes. I actually started in 2014 when I moved to Nashville to be a reporter here, and it was one of the first big story threads that I was able to follow. It was when Tennessee was considering adding a constitutional amendment, Amendment 1 in 2014, that would basically make it clear that the state constitution does not protect abortion rights. Mm-hmm. And this was something that, the campaign was going on when I moved here, and I followed it through the election and kind of saw the aftermath of that too.
Okay, so jump forward. Why Ireland? Why now?
So, I got really interested in abortion law and how that changed from covering the constitutional amendment here in 2014. And so on just a vacation in Ireland in 2018, I noticed all these signs that were clearly kind of out of the exact same playbook that I saw here. On some signs, there were pictures of babies, and on other signs, there were, slogans about choice. And I started to do some research and realized that Ireland was voting on a constitutional amendment that would do the exact opposite of what it did here. It added, as you said, a constitutional right to an abortion across the country for the first time in the country's history. And so I've just been really fascinated by how different places can move in these different directions. And then also just as we are kind of starting this renewed debate about abortion here in Tennessee and across the country, I feel like it's really important to see what other countries have done and learn from them, because this isn't the only place where that has had these conversations.
Okay, so give us a quick timeline on the abortion rights debate in Ireland.
So abortion had always been illegal there. It was a very Catholic country, very socially conservative. And in the 80s, actually in response to Roe v. Wade in the U.S., they passed a constitutional amendment to explicitly outlaw abortion. They were worried that one day when Ireland was maybe less Catholic, that the Supreme Court in Ireland would rule the same way that the Supreme Court here rule and say that abortion was constitutionally protected. So to preempt that possibility of ever happening, they got a constitutional amendment passed. It was called Amendment 8. And from then on, it was a total ban on abortion, no exceptions. But what was interesting is over the next few decades, there came to be these little loopholes as people started to confront some of the realities of a total ban. So, in the 90s, there was a girl who was raped, and the court allowed her to go to England to get an abortion. They started saying that, doctors could tell people about the possibility of going to England. They added an exception for a risk of suicide, which is something that Tennessee's ban now does not include. And then in 2012, there was a high-profile death. So a woman who was miscarrying died because she was in the process of miscarrying, but the doctors wouldn't perform the procedure because the fetus still had a heartbeat, and they said that would qualify as an abortion. And so over the course of the time that it took for the fetus to naturally die, she got an infection and died. And that caused this kind of national movement around abortion rights. So in 2018, the country was very much in the place that I think anti-abortion activists worried about 35 years earlier, people were ready to have abortion rights, and they legalized it.
Okay, so compare all of that to what's been happening here in Tennessee. How do those two countries and timelines, how do they relate to each other?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like Tennessee's heyday of abortion rights was, I would say, in probably 2000. That was when the Tennessee Supreme Court ruled that the Constitution of the state actually like included additional protections for abortion. So it was more illegal here in some ways than the rest of the country. That meant that certain restrictions on abortion couldn't be passed anymore. There could be no more waiting periods or no more mandatory informed consent that doctors had to get from their patients. And then as soon as that happened, it kind of sparked this like backlash from conservatives who that's when they started to have the process of creating a constitutional amendment to undo that. So it's kind of like what I see in both places is just this like back and forth of people trying to kind of like secure the right or the prohibition of abortion in the Constitution, and then the other side coming and trying to take it away. And I feel like we're still seeing that just in kind of opposite directions.
Okay, so what are Irish journalists doing in their coverage that really stands out to you about this issue?
One thing that I noticed that was really interesting is that there seemed to be this understanding that abortion was typically covered as a political issue and a frustration with that. So I started to see a lot of Irish media trying to find people who had had abortions or who had decided not to have abortions. And, like the Irish Times put a call out for people to tell this paper about their abortion stories, and they published those. And that was actually part of the reason why we decided to do that this summer, to try to get more like personal, nuanced stories about the relationship with abortion and reproductive rights on our air. One thing that also I find really interesting that I suspect will start to happen in the United States more is that Irish journalists, especially female Irish journalists, started writing about their own abortion stories, which I have to imagine. I know that the Irish journalism landscape is different than it is here, but I have to imagine there were some pretty robust conversations in the newsrooms about whether that was allowed and how quickly that was allowed. But you definitely saw kind of this greater transparency, I think, on both sides of like how journalists felt in their public life as well.
So, you obviously applied to this before Roe versus Wade was overturned. How has that decision, the Dobbs decision, how has it changed the plan for your research?
Yeah. When the decision first came down, my first thought was like, well, shoot, now that, I don't have to go anywhere else to talk about this. Like we're having these conversations in our newsroom every week. But I do think it's interesting to see in a place where there has been a decision, or I feel like we're just at a different moment in time than Ireland is right now. Like we're very much it feels like at the beginning of this debate, the decision opened up all of these conversations within each state about how much to restrict it. Whereas Ireland feels like right now, at least, it's in a slightly more settled place. And I think sometimes when you're in a place where you can kind of look back a little bit more, you see insights that you can't see in the moment. So I'm interested, my research is going to be talking to journalists about how they covered the abortion debate and trying to gain insights, now with kind of the perspective of time that we can apply more quickly here.
Okay, so how do you plan to apply what you've learned over the next 3 months and how we cover abortion here in the WPLN newsroom?
I mean, when I, over the course of my grant there, I'll be sharing takeaways, but then especially when I get back, just kind of sharing the things that I find most interesting, things that I think we can apply here. I mean, I feel like throughout the entire time there, that will be like what I am mostly thinking of. That is my primary purpose for going.
Well, we're going to miss you, and we're very, very happy and excited for you. We wish you safe travels.
Thank you so much.
Emily Seiner is the newsroom director at WPLN. She's stepping back from her newsroom role for a Fulbright scholarship that is taking her to Ireland for 3 months. Thank you so much for being here, Emily. Have fun.
Thank you.
We have to take a short break. When we come back, we'll head out to East Nashville for the kickoff of this year's Tomato Art Fest this past weekend. What is your favorite way to eat tomatoes? Do you have a great recipe? Tweet us at This Is Nashville. We'll be right back.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. Over the weekend, tens of thousands of people flocked to East Nashville or just walked out their front door to celebrate all things tomato. That's right, the annual Tomato Art Fest took over 5 Points for the 19th time, and our senior producer Steve Harouche was there for the opening parade.
The first tomato parade floats are just starting to show up at the corner of 12th and Russell, and a crowd is already starting to gather. Everyone is wearing something red. I see a red tutu, a tomato costume with the green stem hat, and that giant-mouthed monster head thing from Beetlejuice, but with tomatoes for eyes. You get the idea. This is Corey Effort's first year marching in the parade, and his company's float is nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, it's not here yet. It's like a salad, so it's just a flat platform, and it looks like we're in grass or some kind of greenery, and we're gonna be just chilling on there and screaming our heads off and having a great time. It's actually my first time at Tomato Art Fest, so I'm super excited. I'm gonna be screaming Happy Tomato Day all day long.
This is definitely not the first tomato parade for Hosanna Banks and Carrie Fanning, who is wearing a straw hat with oversized cherry tomatoes going all the way around the brim. She's also wearing a tomato bandolier? Yeah, let's call it a tomato bandolier. Hosanna and Carrie's team, the Tomato Crew, started meeting in June to plan for this. Their float looks like a big red newspaper distribution box, and it's plastered in stickers.
Our float is a play on the Nashville scenes, You're So Nashville If, and we are the Nashville Lycopene, and we are You're So Tomato, if you are, and then we each have a different character, basically. I'm saucy, we have still ripening, homegrown, heirloom, early girl, tomato pie, yeah, so.
We have a Bloody Mary judge.
We have a Bloody Mary judge.
And a Bloody Mary.
So, yeah, and it's just fun. Everybody comes up with their own costume. We get together, make fascinators every year.
Someone just handed you something. Can you describe what we're seeing?
It is my fascinator. It's 3 cans, sauce cans. It's very high and tippy. I'm gonna have to plaster it to my head. So.
Yes, Hosanna is wearing 3 tomato sauce cans on top of her head.
I want to jump in and just say I'm from Indianapolis, and what made me is the theme, a uniter, not a divider. And I think that just really summarizes this whole parade, and it's wonderful.
Kara isn't the only one who's come a long way for this. People come from all over. Polly Block is from the neighborhood, though. She's 11, and her Girl Scout troop came with a float today.
This is a rainbow that represents the Tomato Art Fest. I like seeing all my friends, and I like hearing the sounds and being able to be in it. I'm looking forward to seeing all the hard work that people put into everything that they did as well.
At this point, the street is full, and everywhere you look, it's a sea of red. There's a guy in a flight suit and helmet, a bit of a maverick, pushing a red fighter jet-shaped contraption that says Top Mater on the side. If that pun isn't hitting for you, how about this? His daughter is carrying a sign that says Highway to the Mater Zone. Kevin is here to play in the band at the front of the parade.
This has really grown since we first did it. We did the first one, so it has grown tremendously. Just to see the people out having a good time, man. Just a great time.
Did you ever think it would get this big?
No, but it has.
What was it like the first year?
It may have been this many people right here in the whole parade, so people were just out the house interested, just poking out, looking out the door. And now when we go through, it's a whole different thing right now.
And just like that, it's time to get started. There's the Nashville Lycopene, the Girl Scout Rainbow, Top Mater, and yes, Corey's salad float made it in time. There are Titans cheerleaders, and I'm pretty sure I see Karen Johnson, the Davidson County Register of Deeds, marching too. But arguably, the star of the show is the East Nashville High School Marching Band. The drummers and horn players are all dressed in red. And the drum line, they brought the thunder all right. There's no better proof of that than all the car alarms they set off along the parade route.
Here with me now is the very woman who founded the Tomato Art Fest nearly 2 decades ago. Meg McFadgen, welcome to This is Nashville.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Just listening to that last part made me so happy. I almost relived the whole day over again.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. As we mentioned, this was the 19th annual fest.
Yes, it was.
19 years is a long time.
It is a long time.
Give me the origin story. How did it get started?
Well, it was just this whole series of things that happened and conversations that were had. And my friend Diane came to me afterwards and said, you should do a tomato art show in your gallery. And I was like, we should do that because tomatoes are my favorite part of summer. And so we did. And it was just really done kind of tongue-in-cheek. We invited all the artists that we knew to create tomato art, and they did. And really out of the gate, we had almost floor-to-ceiling tomato-inspired artwork. And at that very first art opening, for some reason I will never know, 1,000 people showed up.
1,000 people.
Also, for another reason I will never know, they were wearing costumes. A lot of them were. And so it just started out being this really fun, festive thing. And then even the motto, before the show opened, my husband walked up from the back. We had the gallery together, and he had made this sign that said, "The tomato, a uniter, not a divider, bringing together fruits and vegetables," and just plopped it down in front of the building. Mm-hmm. And just almost out of the gate, it just had the magic, if that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense. How did it continue to grow into be this cultural phenomenon that it is now?
Well, funnily enough, at the very original art show, I have a friend that said, "Wow, I feel a festival coming on." And I'm like, maybe so. And, of course, I had no idea what I was doing. And the funny thing is she swears she never said it, but I sure did hear her say it. So the next year we decided we'd give it a try. And so we put booths in all the side yards. This was definitely, my dad has a barn, let's put on a show. So we did everything we could with no money whatsoever. And probably the second year, maybe 3,000 people came. And just every year after that, it just grew and grew and grew. And each year the crowd would double. And each year we'd have to, oh, dear, we better close roads. Oh, dear, we better do this. Mm-hmm. And really, I will say that I think what made the festival grow more than anything was the people of East Nashville. Back in the day when my husband and I opened our gallery there was a handful of small businesses that were, just trying to make a go of it. And the people of that neighborhood, you would almost have to be the meanest person in the world and have nothing to sell for them not to try to support you. And so anything you tried to do, they were all in. And when we did this festival, the people of East Nashville showed up, and they wore costumes, and they played, and they would come to me and say, "Hey, you should probably do this event." And I said, "You know what? If you do the event, I'll promote it for you." And they would. And they would tell their friends. And so really, I think it took a village. That's what made it grow.
Mm-hmm. Now, Meg, tell me, what is it about tomatoes? It's a whole festival, and you were talking, people are wearing costumes. People are wearing red. There's a fashion show. What is it? That's a lot for one humble fruit. What is it about tomatoes that makes this so special?
I don't know either, but I guess tomatoes just make people happy. They're red, they're juicy, they're delicious. there is a whole contingent of Mater haters that come, but they still come. But I don't know truly what made it happen other than just everyone was so enthused, and it was just a great way for people to get out of the house and meet their neighbors and just have fun. The thing that I love so much about Tomato Art Fest is it's the one day of year that people kind of set all their troubles away and just come out and play. It is truly my favorite day of the year. It's the happiest day of the year.
It takes a lot of people to pull this off on such a large scale. Who helped you out as it grew?
Well, now, as it was growing, it truly was all volunteers from the neighborhood. Somewhere in the middle, and I don't even remember what exact year it is, and I apologize for this, a friend of mine introduced me to another who is now my close friend, Jack Davis, and he had a background in events. So he came on board and started taking over a lot of the, just make it happen things. I mean, I'm good at art shows, but I realized I was definitely reaching my level of incompetence. So he came in with his crew and took over. And since my husband and I have retired from the gallery, he has taken over the entire festival, except for I still get to pick the art and hang the show and stuff like that. But they have done such an incredible job of making the festival grow, and they love it like we loved it. And so they somehow keep the intimacy and the joy of it as it's growing into this behemoth of a festival.
Now, I'd like to introduce my next guests, both of whom are tomato fans, to say the least. Chris De Jesus and Lance Dupree, welcome to This Is Nashville.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So, Lance, I understand you've been entering the Tomato Fest recipe contest for years, including this year.
Yes.
I also heard you never won. So tell us, how did you come home with the gold? Did you come home with the gold this year?
Yeah, I won first place and most artistic.
Congratulations, my friend. How does it feel?
It felt great. After all the years, I took for granted this year I hadn't won. And then Mike Smith texted me last night and asked. I didn't even want to text and ask. I was like, all that work, and I've lost again.
So tell me the dish. What was the dish that took first place?
I did a tomato mousse bouche, and so it was just bites. I did a savory tomato bread pudding, a deviled tomato, and then I carved tulips, and I made a flower pot, and it was tomato stuffed mozzarella to look like a tulip thing. And so the whole tray was a display.
Wow, that sounds absolutely delicious. Now, I understand your first entry was kind of intricate and detailed. Tell me about that dish the first time you entered the contest.
I think it was a tomato tart. And so I did the tart, and I grew the tomatoes. I have a farm, and so I grew the tomatoes. I made it with a bone broth. I also had cows, and so I made the bone broth out of the bones, and then made the tart filling. And I wrote all of that up, but I'm just not sure I'm sure I was the only one there that raised everything that was in this dish.
Wow. Even the bone broth.
Yeah.
Wow. That is dedication. Did you grow up eating tomatoes?
No. My grandmother and my great-grandmother always told everybody that only girls ate tomatoes. And so none of the men in my family ever ate tomatoes. And then when I got to be an adult, I tried a tomato, and I was like, I can eat tomatoes.
Yeah, great-grandma was wrong.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, your restaurant, Butcher and Bee, just wrapped up Tomato Week.
For sure.
What's the inspiration behind that?
So, being the chef of Butcher and Bee, our menu is vegetable focused. I think was the Nashville Scene one time called us the most vegetarian, non-vegetarian restaurant in Nashville.
Okay.
And so I lean very heavy on vegetables when I think of our menu. We almost let our farmers determine our menu here. We use a lot of local farmers around the area, and my favorite season of cooking is summer. We have a farmer that we use in town by the name of Samantha Lamb, who runs the Farm and Fiddle who grows the most delicious tomatoes I've ever seen. I'm from New Jersey, where my grandfather had an amazing garden. I grew up eating tomatoes when I was young. And her tomatoes are out of this world. She grows several different varieties, from sun gold cherry tomatoes, which are just like candy, to the Tennessee heirloom Cherokee purples, to sauce tomatoes, all different varieties. And so we did, originally last year, we did a Sunday tomato dinner with Samantha. And then this year was the first year that we did the whole tomato week, because we just felt like one day wasn't enough. And we just really went all in and did about 6 or 7 dishes featuring mainly the tomato.
Wow.
And it was a great success, actually. We're already looking forward to next year.
I'm from New Jersey as well, and my grandmother put me onto tomato cucumber salad back when I was a kid.
That's a staple.
That is. If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil A. Colonna. We're talking this hour about tomatoes with Tomato Art Fest founder Meg McFadgen, chef Chris De Jesus, and tomato enthusiast Lance Dupree. All right, so I'm already hungry. What are some of the dishes you all featured in this year's Tomato Week?
So one of the small plate dishes, a couple of small plates that we did. One of my favorites, actually, we did is a very simple dish that we did. It's called malawak. It's a layered flatbread, and also known as a Yemenite pancake. It's a layered flatbread, similar to like a pita or a naan, thinly rolled out, layered on top of each other, and then on the flat top. But what it's served with is just grated tomato, garlic, salt in a bowl, and a little bit of hot sauce inside. And so why I love that so much is it just showcases the tomato in its raw form. We chose the Cherokee purple for that dish, mainly because it's the Tennessee heirloom variety, and we want to really showcase that tomato. But just because they're so delicious, and you get to really experience a tomato with just a simple piece of bread, which we made in-house and cooked from raw to order when you order it. And so it was just the warm, fresh bread with the freshly grated tomato. And it was just one of my favorites.
I see you brought some stuff to whip up one of your dishes featuring...
This is also probably a staff favorite for sure. I probably hear from the staff almost every day that this is one of their favorites that we've put on the menu. Typically, I lean towards a tomato and peach salad, but I decided to switch it up this year. This is our tomato plum salad here. So I have a mixture of dinosaur plums and red plums. We use some pink boar tomatoes from Samantha. These are our late season heirloom tomatoes. We have some Juan Flam. They're little bright orange salad tomatoes. My favorite, sun gold cherry tomatoes. They are super sweet. And then a couple green zebra heirloom tomatoes. We're tossing it with a vinaigrette. Very simple. It's just olive oil, sumac. It's a spice, Middle Eastern. Has a sort of lemon flavor to it. Nigella seed, which is kind of it's a seed from a flower. It's kind of a mild onion flavor. And then orange blossom water.
Okay.
Gentle, you got to be gentle with it, but it's a really nice floral flavor. The green in here, which I find to be almost as delicious as the tomatoes, is a greddy. It's a sea lettuce from the Mediterranean. It's almost like succulent. We get that from Sow and Harvest in Murfreesboro. They water it with salt water, which is probably the most interesting part. So it absorbs the salt water from the roots, to mimic its natural habitat on the coast of the Mediterranean.
Okay, I can't wait to try this.
Which is out of this world. It blows any other typical mixed green out of the water. And that's just the simpleness of the salad. We're serving it on top of yogurt. Ever since I started working at Butcher and Bee, I want to put yogurt on everything now. And the creaminess with the dressing goes perfectly here. This is a thickened yogurt called labna, a little bit more orange blossom water in there, and some raw garlic. And then we're going to top it with some lemon basil to bring back more floral notes, and some lemon balm as well. So lots of herbs, fresh tomatoes, just keeping it simple. It reminds me of like a summer night.
Yes, and it smells absolutely fantastic in here. You know, as you're getting that ready for us to taste, and thank you very much for bringing that in. You know, Lance, you know, what crosses your mind when you're coming up with these recipes? What's your inspiration?
Well, the contest itself tells your inspiration. They give you a topic that you have to, and then you've just got to create off their topic.
So how are you when you get the topic, like for this year? What did you map out to do? How were you going about that creative process?
I do design for a living, residential design, and so with this it's a little more crafty because it's the Tomato Fest. So I try to craft it up instead of just a clean design like you would see at a restaurant. And so I just started laying out the design, and then I started picking. It was four places on the tray, and then I started studying to find those 4 dishes I wanted for the bite-sized tomatoes.
Now, Meg, how does it feel to hear somebody so enthusiastic and dedicated to win first place at your festival?
You have no idea how it thrills me. It makes me want to eat everything they've been talking about, too.
I know. I'm about to myself. You know, okay, so we're in the middle of tomato season. Chris, why is this really a great time for chefs?
I mean, you know, the weather this summer has been crazy. And, you know, it's taken a lot of adjusting from our farmers. But really, it's actually been a great tomato year. It's, you know, a lot of our farmers grow them, you know, in hoop houses indoors. A lot of them have come up with different trellising techniques and watering techniques to kind of, you know, combat the weather and adjust to. So I feel like the heat and everything has just really brought out the sweetness in the tomatoes this year. And they are probably the best tomatoes that I've had. And the best part about tomato season is it lasts until the end of October, which when I first moved to Nashville blows my mind. The first year I moved here, I was blown away with how long tomato season lasts, and very excited as well. And so it's so easy, you know, when we talked about doing a whole week, it was just, I mean, it was easy for, you know, us to come up with. I could have done probably my whole menu with tomato items on it.
Yes, and I'm sure I could eat that entire menu. Yeah. I'm definitely going to eat that one day, but we have to end for now. I want to thank you all so much for being on the show. That was Chris De Jesus, chef at Butcher and Bee. He was joined with Tomato Art Fest founder Meg McFadgen and Mr. Lance Dupree, who took home first place for the most artistic recipe at this year's Tomato Art Fest. Thank you all for being here, and thanks for making me hungry. We have to take a short break. When we come back, we'll learn how to grow healthy tomatoes with a master gardener and a professor who studies pest insects. Are you growing tomatoes? How did they turn out? Tweet us your questions for the experts at This Is Nashville. We'll be right back. I'm Khalil Ekolona, and this is Nashville. I do not have a green thumb. I've thought about growing tomatoes, but I'm a little bit intimidated by the idea. How much do I water? When are my seedlings ready to transfer? What about pests? Joining me now with answers is Master Gardener Joan Clayton Davis, who heads up the Speakers Bureau for Master Gardeners of Tennessee, and Dr. Kashalya Amarasekaria. She is the Associate Professor at Tennessee State University College of Agriculture. Joan, Dr. Kashalya, thank you so much. Welcome to This is Nashville.
My pleasure.
So,
for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we talked about this before the break, but I have to know, Joan, what is your favorite way to eat tomatoes?
Actually, just a plain tomato sandwich.
What goes on that?
Wheat bread, Miracle Whip, and a half-inch slice of tomato. That's it.
That's it. That sounds really tasty. Kashalya?
Oh, I like to put it in my salad, leafy greens and tomatoes and maybe some shredded chicken. Okay. Every day my lunch is mostly like that.
Okay. And every day at lunch, that's healthy. You're beating most of us out on the healthy tip. Now, Joan, you've brought some tomatoes into the studio. What am I looking at? Those look beautiful.
These are Sweet 100 cherry tomatoes. And it's I have one cherry tomato plant, and this is in the Tennessee State University College of Agriculture Community Garden. And they are a very sweet tomato and very easy to grow. They are prolific producers of cherry tomatoes. I have the container I have is about a quart to half a gallon that I picked last night at 7 o'clock. And I'll have this many more in 2 to 3 days.
You picked these last night. May I have one?
Sure.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, here we go.
Tell me what you think.
Delicious.
Good.
I'm sorry to talk with my mouth full of food, Mom, if you're listening. Okay, so I have something for you. Our afternoon editor, Julia Ritchie, brought us some pineapple ground cherry tomatoes from Bouvard, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. They're covered in a little husk, so we don't want to eat that. But just in case for later on, those are for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, Joan, tell me, what is a master gardener?
A master gardener is a volunteer who works as an extension of the Cooperative Extension Service. We are trained by the University of Tennessee College of Agriculture, the Institute of Agriculture, and work collaboratively here in Davidson County with Tennessee State University's College of Agriculture. But each master gardener is trained basically one college semester or one semester, a minimum of 40 hours in class work, and then 40 hours of volunteer work, and then you become certified as a master gardener, and you must continue in education every year to maintain certification. And then we go out and volunteer to help the community learn about horticulture, growing things, and how to keep your yards good. But I specialize in growing vegetables.
Growing vegetables. All right, so let's talk some tomatoes, or is that a fruit? We'll answer that at a different time. So how many different types of tomatoes are there, and what are the differences in how we grow a few of them?
Oh, gosh, there are lots and lots of different types of tomatoes. And when we talk with folks about growing tomatoes when they're deciding, do I really want to grow tomatoes? I have no green thumb. We ask them what you want to use your tomatoes for.
Okay.
Do you want to can them and freeze them? Do you want to make sauces? Those kinds of things. And the first choice is, in deciding, is do you want what is called a determinate tomato or an indeterminate tomato?
What's the difference? Why is that important?
The determinate tomatoes are tomatoes that grow not quite as tall as the indeterminate. And it grows, produces its fruit, and has a harvest time of about 4 weeks. Once it grows, it's done.
Okay.
The indeterminate, as a vine, continues to grow until frost will kill it.
Okay.
And it gets much taller and requires staking.
Okay. Now, what is the best time of year to plant our tomatoes?
In Tennessee, in Middle Tennessee particularly, we have basically 3 planting seasons. Our early spring season, the warm season, which starts about May, 1st of May, and then the fall garden. So tomatoes, it's best about the last week of April, first week of May. The soil needs to be a certain temperature in order for the roots to gain hold and grow well.
Okay, so the optimal time to plant our tomatoes is in May. And Kashalia, you've studied this specifically. What pests are around that pose a danger to these precious young tomato plants during that time?
So at the beginning, when they are very, very young stage, like 5, 6 leaves, they are the seedling stage. There are few pests that can injure them and kind of kill them. So some of them are flea beetles, aphids, and then also cutworms. They are kind of like moth larvae that can cut the plant from the bottom. So these 3 pests are kind of critical at the young stage. Flea beetles are like really small, about 1/10 in size, kind of brownish, blackish looking, and they're the one jump when you disturb them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've seen the plants with a lot of holes, like somebody shot them, that's the flea beetle damage. We call it shot hole appearance of the leaves. So if there are many that can kill the plant. So at the very beginning, when the seedling is so young, we have to protect them, because even the plant wouldn't die. You create a weak plant later, and then that might die anyway with some kind of other disease or something, another pest attack. So to create a strong plant, we have to protect them. So a lot of people do you need to monitor the pest. You can put like yellow, white sticky cards. Some people put some covers, and also they appear like midday, so you can spray water and deter them. And also another best thing to do is grow some companion plants like flowering plants like marigold, sunflower, cosmos. Most of the flowering plants would work. That will attract good bugs to your field, and then they will control these bad ones, so like flea beetles. And the other one is the most common other pest is aphids. There are 2 types. One is called potato aphids that looks like kind of pinkish looking.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is green peach aphid. You can find them underside of the leaf, very soft bodied, and they are if you see ants on your plant, then probably you have aphids. So their population can explode really quickly. So it's really good to monitor the plants at the young stage, and these are also controlled by good bugs, because a lot of these good bugs, like these soft-bodied insects, so like lady beetles, green lacewing spiders, flower fly larvae, many more. There are many more, even spiders. They are really good at controlling these pests.
So,
the third one is the cutworm. It's a larvae of night flying moth. That one also, the damage is they cut the plant from the bottom. So if you inspect the evening, late afternoon, evening, they try to attack. In the morning, if you check your plants are cut from the base, then that's not cutworm damage.
Okay.
And one way to control is to wrap them around with aluminum foil, or put a cardboard or plastic cup, bottom cut cardboard cup or plastic cup. So it's like a cover to stop them attacking your plants.
Well, I know a quick and easy thing to do would be to spray some insecticide, but what do you think of that plan?
So if you're a commercial grower, that's what they do, and a lot of these pests are controlled, but then you destroy whole sustainable agriculture system. You kill all the good bugs too. So we are talking about small farmers. So some people going for fun, just backyard, and when you don't have land, people like to put a tomato plant or two in a pot and grow. So we are kind of focusing on those small growers and even organic growers who don't have that many, capacity to spray insecticide. So the bottom line is we have to attract good bugs to the system that are naturally controlling them. Is a free service they provide. What we have to give to get some help. So what we can do is provide some pollen, flower nectar, honeydew stuff. So we grow good flowering plants to attract them. You don't have to have many of them, but at least like few of marigold. A lot of people grow marigold. I have seen sunflowers are good, and also cosmos and there are some other plants that you can grow. Rudbeckia is good, and these are some perennial plants, so you don't have to grow every year. If you put them in a special place in a garden that you don't disturb often, so that will come out the next year as well.
Okay, if you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil Ekalona. We're talking with Master Gardener Joan Clayton Davis and Dr. Kashalia G. Amarasakaria. Now, about how to grow and protect your tomato plants. Okay, so Joan, we get past that first stage of our plants and they're healthy. What are some of the other stages of our tomato plant growth, and what should we be monitoring?
Well, the professor mapped it out. You want to monitor your plants every day, every day for pests, anything that could impact it. You want to water properly. You want to provide fertilizer at the appropriate time based on the particular cultivar of the tomato you have, and monitoring, staking it if it's a type of tomato that needs staking it at the proper time. So those are the things that you want to definitely be mindful of always.
Now, aside from other pests, insects, what other type of pests are there out there that we should be paying attention to?
Well, it depends on what's in your environment. In many backyard gardens, we have deer, we have rabbits, we have squirrels, we have other kinds of animals that can get into the garden area and cause havoc to your plants.
Okay. What are some signs that we should look out for that our plant is asking us, please, please help me? What are some of the ways we can tell just by looking at our plant that it'll need help?
Well, if you're monitoring every day, you're going to notice if your leaves are standing up firmly, if they are looking healthy and smiling back at you.
Okay.
And that's basically it, is that you have to monitor and you must maintain your soil, your watering. Most tomatoes will need about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of water per week, but you don't want to overwater. You don't want to water your foliage. It's best to water at the base and just maintain your area. Keep weeds out, because weeds will fight for the nutrients that the tomato plant needs.
Okay. Now, after we harvest our tomatoes, what should we do with our soil?
Well, it depends on what you plan to do. One of the things that we always suggest is that people rotate. If you plant tomatoes in an area this year, you want to plant something else in another family of plants. For instance, you might want to plant things that were in the peas or beans family or in the cabbage family. You want to rotate such that, for instance, the beans can help add nitrogen to the soil, which helps with the growth of the plants in the early stages and keep the leaves healthy. But you also want to make sure that if there are viruses or bacteria or fungi that have been identified, you might want to treat that. Some do it through what's called solarization. which is basically you can put like a black cloth down and let the sun bake it and bake it and bake it, which will help improve the soil for the next year. You can also plant what's called cover crops. Sometimes there are certain kinds of radishes that you can plant that will help build up the soil for the next year.
Wonderful. That was Master Gardener Joan Clayton Davis. She was joined by Dr. Kashalya G. Amara Kasaria. I want to thank you both for being with us so much, and I think I'm brave enough. I'm going to try to plant some tomatoes next year. We want to thank everyone who tuned in this hour. Tomorrow, we learn about peer support and what drives the folks who help people in active recovery. This is Nashville is a production of WPLN News and Nashville Public Radio. Listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Our producers are Steve Harush, Rose Gilbert, and Tasha A.F. Limley. Our digital lead is Anna Gallegos-Cannon. Michaela Elias is our technical director. Our executive producer is Andrea Tudhope. Shout out to our intern, Doreen Chernecki. The masterminds behind our theme music are Larange and Namir Blade. Special thanks to Mary Ward and Roz Lewis. The conversation doesn't end here. Tweet us at This Is Nashville. Find us on Facebook and Instagram and tell us what you want from our show by filling out our quick survey online. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil Ekalona. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. And be good to each other.